When I was in high school, I was in Shakespeare's As You Like It. I was Duke Senior in the play. And there's a famous speech from Act 2, Scene 7 by Jacques to, well, really to the assorted courtiers that are in attendance. We were looking for him, we couldn't find him, and he comes in, and I ask him, what up, G? And he replies,
A fool. A fool. I met a fool in the forest. A motley fool. A miserable world. As I do live by food, I met a fool who laid him down and basked him in the sun and railed on Lady Fortune in good terms, in good set terms, and yet a motley fool. Good morrow, fool, quoth I. No, sir, quoth he. Call me not fool till heaven hath sent me fortune. And then he drew a dial from his poke, and looking on it with lackluster eye, says quite wisely, "'Tis 10 o'clock. Thus we may see, quoth he, how the world wags. 'Tis but an hour ago since it was 9, and after 1 hour more 'twill be 11. And so, from hour to hour, we ripe and ripe, and from hour to hour we rot and rot. And thereby hangs a tale. When I did hear the motley fool thus moral on the time, my lungs began to crow like Chanticleer, and I did laugh, sans intermission, an hour by his dial. Oh, noble fool, worthy fool, motley's the only wear.
I loved this speech. And honestly, if I imagine the fool in question, it looks a little bit like this. Those were not my lines. That monologue is from Jacques. I was Duke Senior, and Duke Senior is essentially a glorified prop. My job was simply to be the central character upon which the backstory was hinged, and that was about it. I had a small number of lines, and really consequentially inconsequential to the story. Jacques was played by this guy I went to high school with named Damien, and Damien was phenomenal. And it's, I think, telling that I can still remember almost perfectly that scene and that monologue, but I can't remember a single line of my own. But at one point during the rehearsal for that scene, I remember we're all on the stage, and Damien is standing and doing his wide-eyed explanation of meeting Touchstone in the woods. And my high school drama teacher comes racing down to the stage, and she says, like, grabs just one of us, and says, "What are you doing right now?" And he was like, "I'm just listening." I mean, that's pretty much the answer that anyone would give, because we're just idiot high school kids staring at some dude while he delivers a speech about meeting a idiot. Miss G, the drama teacher, began talking about how you never just do anything, right? You're not just listening. Maybe you are listening and taking it all in and soaking up the brilliance of Jacques' words. Maybe you're listening, but you're also wondering where you've put your keys or what you want to do tonight. Maybe you're listening and you're thinking, why in the hell does Duke Sr. take this guy seriously? What a fucking buffoon. But you're not just listening, right? And this was the point she was trying to drive home. Just is the word of a bad actor, not a good character. Just means that nobody's told you that you need to move or react in a specific way, so you're just sort of coasting to the next point when you know what you've been told to do and can do that. But a character, if a character is a real person, or supposed to be a real person, they're experiencing this for the first time, and so they're going to do more than just sort of vapidly wait until the director says, "Here's the cue, run to this part of the stage," or what have you, right? Now, this stuck with me, and I don't know why, because I was a terrible actor. I had, as you can see, I had no desire to become the greatest theater legend of all time. But it did stick with me. That idea of the power of the word just to simply diminish and remove agency and all sorts of stuff. The point of this video. Boo Boo Bennett, when she says she's just asking questions, is not just asking questions. She's using just, right? She's trying to prove in her hard-hitting journalisms that liberals are stupid and morally repugnant and don't even know their own values, because obviously that's her shtick. She thinks that's fucking awesome. If you've never seen Boo Boo's work, essentially what she does is she sticks a microphone in someone's face real close and starts asking them leading questions that are designed to show off a liberal bias, and then theoretically they're supposed to challenge us with the extremes of that bias, and we're supposed to go, oh, I never realized. You are correct, Boo Boo Bennett. I have done a stupid. I'm not going to go through one of her videos point by point. A lot of people do that, and those videos are hilarious. I'll include a link to the one that I watched earlier today in the description below. It's important that huge megastars of the YouTubes, like myself, share some of that spotlight. Now, I am responsible for informing the opinions of, I swear to you, over 40 people. And if I can send a few links to some young up-and-coming streamer, Hassan, Vosh, if I can help them build their pool a little bit, then I'm doing my part. Solidarity. But that's not what I'm going to do. I am going to talk, however, about using an example from her video. So in this particular video, Boo Boo is on a beach somewhere, who knows where, with a bunch of young people who are all just clearly big, dumb, stupid-headed liberals. And old Boo Boo, she's gonna show them her cleverness and catch them in their dumb liberal stupids. So she starts her just asking questions by asking people, should prisoners be allowed to vote? Now, your answer is actually a gate. She's not going to let you explain yourself. She's just going to give you a yes or no. Should prisoners be allowed to vote? If you say no, in fact, we should set fire to them or deport them to their nearest point of origin or what have you, then she'll sort of nod at the camera and be like, aha, there's one smart, good American in the batch. But if you say yes, she doesn't care that you said yes. She just cares that she has a follow-up question or two. And in fact, in the video, it's largely one of two questions she asks next. It's either, do you think that prisoners should own guns? Or do you think that a rapist should be allowed to vote and therefore have agency over my body? These are tremendously terrible takes. Obviously, if we're asking the question of should prisoners vote, most people who are liberal are going to say yes. That's not a guarantee, but and by liberal I mean on the left of center. It's not a guarantee that people will say yes, but that's the typical liberal perspective. We assume that everybody should have a voice in government, so yeah, let people vote. Switching to the topic of the gun ownership, the implication of the question is, what she's trying to do is make you go, well, no, of course a prisoner shouldn't have a gun because I'm a liberal and I hate guns. I've clearly realized just now that my rights and freedoms are impugned upon when I am a prisoner, including the right to vote. That's what she's hoping will happen. What actually happens is people go, no, prisoners shouldn't have guns. They don't have the right to gun. Oh, but the Constitution. Well, when you are a prisoner, some of your rights are limited. Some of your rights are removed, and others of your rights are just as protected as they were before. The right to own a gun would be dangerous in that scenario, so that is removed. But, here's another amendment for you, boo-boo. The Eighth Amendment. I'm not even American. The Eighth Amendment is the freedom, or the protection from cruel and unusual punishment. That one, turns out, still applies to prisoners. In fact, specifically, largely applies to prisoners. That's why they're not allowed to publicly dissect you if you do a law break, boo boo. So the idea that this is an all or nothing, that the Constitution either totally applies or is completely replaced by Miranda, it's wrong. It's wrong and dumb. And then the other question that she asked, the one that I referenced, is should a rapist have agency over me as a human being? That's dumb, and that's not how democracy happens. If a prisoner votes, that doesn't mean that that prisoner cast a vote for, let's just say, evil Joe Biden, and therefore that rapist has made it so that you can never have an abortion. Like, what? I don't even know what the fuck she's on about. But one person, one voter, does not have a tremendously significant say. They have an overall voice, or they're part of the overall voice of the people that voted for that candidate. But it's ridiculous to assume rapists don't even necessarily vote in a block. Like, they don't have a CPAC, an RPAC. It's a weak thing designed to ultimately not trigger conversation, but it's supposed to be such a cunning statement that us stupid liberal dum-dums will go, oh, my whole worldview, kapooey, and suddenly we'll become mindless automatons for the status quo, like Boo Boo. And I mean, like, I watch these videos, and all I can think is like, oh, look at you, Boo Boo, you did a clever. Ooh, look at that. People should pay attention to you and watch your podcast. No, no one should care. This is a ham-fisted attempt at using the just asking questions trope to highlight that you're better than people. It's not about the answer. It's about punching down. That's all she's doing is just, and that's if you watch her movies. Boo Boo Bennett just travels around punching down on people she sees as lesser than her, liberals. And 99 times out of 100, here's a little secret, they punch back harder. So it's a funny thing to me. In terms of, I suppose I should take a moment and answer the question. Do I believe that prisoners should be allowed to vote? Absolutely. That's personal opinion. And I base that on the fact that just because someone's incarcerated doesn't mean they don't have a need to represent themselves in a free democracy. Not everyone who's in jail is there for murder or rape. A lot of people, not all, but a lot of people are there for very short durations, and they will be governed by the people that come into power as the result of an election. More importantly, even if you are let's say a death row inmate and capital punishment happens to be a thing that they're talking about, I think you do have a say and a perspective that probably should be heard at some level. That's a thing I personally support. Now, I live in Canada, and here in Canada, we actually didn't allow prisoners to vote right up until 1993, 3 years before the last residential school closed. In 1993, we passed a new law that essentially said prisoners can vote, but only for those serving stints of 2 years or less. And then in 2002, we had a case Sauvé versus the Attorney General of Canada that went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court found that it was unconstitutional. I'll include the link to the Supreme Court decision. And I'm also going to include, I mentioned earlier that prisoners' rights are reduced. There's a great website that I found, or link that I found that talks about prisoners' rights and what they are and what they're not. So I'll include a link there too. But yes, so I'll include a link to what the sort of the findings of the case, and in a small summary, because I'm by no means a legal scholar, but what I took out of reading it was essentially that the limitation was struck down because the right to vote, or sorry, disenfranchising from the right to vote goes against the desire to promote civic responsibility and respect for democracy. And that's a major sort of foundational point of that whole legislation is to foster respect for democracy among prisoners. And then the other aspect that I thought was important, I'll actually quote the ruling. It's denial of the right to vote on the basis of attributed moral unworthiness is inconsistent with the respect for the dignity of every person that lies at the heart of Canadian democracy and the Charter. I think that's a really good answer. How very Canadian. But that's Canadian law. And American law, like everything else in America, apparently, is a little bit different. There are 2 states in the Union where prisoners can vote freely. There are 20 states that remove the ability to vote until the completion of sentencing. There are 14 states and the District of Columbia that allow people on probation or parole to vote, but not inmates. There are 5 states that allow people on probation and to vote, but not parolees or prisoners. There are 8 that allow some, but not all, to vote after the completion of their sentencing, depending on I believe it's depending on the type of crime they committed. And then there's Virginia, where once you are a felon, you lose the right to vote in perpetuity forever and ever. They actually the governor just forced, like I said, I saw it was like 140,000 felons now have the right to vote, or post felons have the right to vote in Virginia now. So it's a states' rights thing, which makes perfect sense to me, right? I mean, it's kind of like the other things that are important at a state level, like having the right to own people or destroy the environment. How fucking American. Another example of just is it's just a joke. It's just a joke. There's nothing funny about it's just a joke. Essentially, what It's Just a Joke does is allows you to take your worst opinions and beliefs and package them all up, display them for the world, and have the out of being like, well, it's just a joke. I don't believe that. Super, super awesome, fun. A couple days ago, I saw an image, and it was a trans man and a trans woman, and the trans man is actually pregnant, and they look excited and happy, and they are building a family, and they have found happiness together, and I think that's lovely. And the image is like, there's a caption on it to the effect of like, oh my God, she's a he, it has a vagina, but he's got a she, and she's got a dick, and one of them's having a baby. Ah! And I read it, and I was like, it's not funny. There's no joke in that. It is nothing more than being an asshole for the sake of being an asshole. And if you point this out to the person who posted that image, you know what they're going to say. We all know what they're going to say. It's just a joke. God, why is the left so incapable of laughing? Lol, I owned you, libtard. Fuck that. There are ways to make really good jokes out of really serious subjects. That's a thing. However, this isn't a joke. It's just cruelly making fun of people because you don't like what they're doing and you don't like how they live. That's it. There's nothing clever. There's no nuance. There's no thoughtful play on words. There's nothing about this is funny except look at these people and mock them. And that's just being an asshole. But honestly, the use of the whole concept of just that bugs me the most is what we saw yesterday at the time I'm recording this. Or no, I guess that was 2 days ago at the time of recording this. I read that on my screen. A young white man went to several massage parlors and murdered several Asian American women who were working there. When I first saw the story, my initial thought was, oh fuck, Another goddamn incel killer. Probably a reasonable take. Another reasonable take might have been, ah, fuck, another white supremacist killer. Definitely. You know, what didn't occur to me was that this might just be a frustrated sex addict. He just had a bad day. You know, I don't know all of the technical details of the case and the facts. I don't know what his motivation was. I don't know if he was an incel or a racist or just having a bad day. I don't know if the women were sex workers or legitimate massage therapists. It's been pretty heavily implied that they were sex workers. I don't know what his philosophical underpinnings were, and what dark predilections he had. Just to be absolutely balls out clear here, I'm not saying that sex work is a dark predilection. The dark predilection here is actually the people who are constantly insulting and degrading sex workers. Sex work is real work. And to be fair, all we see is people grinding their fucking noses in it, making them feel lesser, making them unsafe, preventing them from having a modicum of safety in this position that they're in. And all the while, tutting at the character of the people involved. Fucking for money is fine. Being an asshole, thereby hangs the tail. Or what hate we would find tangled up in the twists of his awful fucking beard. Now, here's the thing. I am a nicotine addict. I generally purchase my nicotine from the gas station around the corner from my house in the form of cigarettes. I don't like that I am addicted to nicotine. In fact, I genuinely hate it. I see it as something truly weak about myself. And I do not believe myself to be a weak person, so that is actually a really bitter pill for me to swallow. And I swallow it daily. I'm not one of those smokers that'll tell you that, I'll quit as soon as I don't enjoy smoking anymore. Fuck that. I don't enjoy smoking. I haven't enjoyed smoking for years. The real reason I don't quit, who cares? Why bother? Literally, apathy is keeping me smoking. I smoke because I'm weak and I'm perhaps a little bit self-destructive. He was supposedly a sex addict, and he was just oh so tired of being tempted by these women. He was just tired of having to pay for sex. Bullshit. He was a fucking murderer. Whatever his ideology is, and I'm pretty sure it'll be some variation on incels or white supremacists or pickup culture or fucking toxic masculinity, whatever it is, it made him feel perfectly fine paying money to have sex with women. And it made him feel perfectly fine to hate them while paying them to have sex with them. And it made him feel like the world owed him the fact that he was having to pay for sex was unfair to him. And that hurt his self-esteem, creating a vicious cycle of self-loathing and self-destruction. So his fucking monster ideology is essentially what made him feel justified in taking his pathetic weakness out on the women who provide him the services he was asking for. He was not just a sex addict. This was not just a bad day. Just is a cop-out. Just is the words of a bad actor, not a good character. Just isn't real.